Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. This week we're going to be making sure the birds get plenty of food through the winter, and we're going to be starting cultivating the vegetable garden by digging and composting. Well, you may remember a couple of months ago in the vegetable plot where we'd got a spare piece of ground where we'd removed onions. I put a packet of green manure down, and green manure is a mixture of ryegrass and various brassica seedlings that grow, and the idea is that they retain the nutrients in the soil over winter instead of them washing through down into the subsoil. And it's germinated quite well, and we've got here all these seedlings that are growing there, and some people would leave them probably later into the winter, early spring to dig them in when they're quite tall. They'd chop them down and dig them in, but I want to start preparing the ground now, so I'm going to start digging these in. And I think the thing with digging is don't overdo it, do it little and often so you don't harm your back. But what we're going to do is bury these into the ground, and then they will just gradually rot down over the spring and improve the soil moisture retaining capacity and the organic matter. If you were doing this very traditionally, what we would do is we would dig out a trench, and then that soil would be moved to the other end of the plot, and then we would dig forward, and at the end that soil would go into the trench. We don't have to do it that way. I'm not digging too deep in here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just turning over, and I'm not going too deep. And the idea is we want to make sure we bury these seedlings, and once you've done one spit, which is basically the width of a spade, it all becomes much easier after that. So I'm just turning that over, and as you can see, those seedlings there are being buried. So I'm not going too deep at all, about 4 or 5 inches, which is fine. I've got a good soil, and then I'm going to turn back and dig again, push the spade down and turn that one over there, making sure that the seedlings are at the bottom. So they're all buried out the way. If we don't bury them and we leave them exposed, they'll just carry on growing and become a problem, almost like a weed really. And then we've got to kill them off in the spring. So I want them buried, smothered from light, and then they will rot down. And the other thing I'm not doing, we've got a lovely loamy soil, but I'm not breaking the soil down too much at this stage. This is especially important if you've got clay soil, because what we want is the frost to work on this and to break it down so that come spring it's nice and crumbly. If we break it down too much now, we'll find that it just goes flat and sits in water. So that's the sort of texture we need. Nice lumps on there, little and often, and within half an hour I can easily dig this piece over. If you don't want to dig, you find it too difficult, then there is another method that lots of people are using now called the no-dig system. And basically, I'll show you what we're doing on the bed over there. So the principle of no dig is literally you don't dig the soil, so you never use a spade or a fork in it once you've got the ground in good condition. So you need to be weed free to start with. What I've got here is a plot of ground that the crops have been taken off in the autumn. Next year this is going to be the onion bed as part of my rotation system. So I'm going to try this as a no dig next year and see how it goes. So literally weeds have been removed. I've got a pile of compost here that's been made in our compost bin, and all I'm going to do is spread it so there's an inch or two over the whole surface. And then what will happen is over the winter the worms will start to take some of that in, but it will also stay on the top. It keeps the moisture in there, and then when I come to plant in the spring, instead of having to go through it with a spade or a fork, I am literally just going to plant in through the compost. So it really is as simple as that. Now, I've not done this very much, I've got to be honest. I'm quite traditional. I tend to dig my soil, not heavily, but I dig it and incorporate the compost so that it's down at the root level. So this is a bit of an experiment for me, but I know lots of people that do it and they swear by it and say it works. So I see no reason why it won't, but I still do like to dig because I think it's good exercise. Little and often digging is good for you, but we'll try this. We'll do both methods and hopefully they'll both work, but this is a really good one. If you can't physically dig, just compost it and then start planting in the spring. I'm a great believer in attracting birds into the garden. Not only do I like to see them, but they do a lot of good because they eat weed seeds, they eat lots of pests, caterpillars, aphids, all that type of thing. So they really are the gardener's friend. And although there's a lot of natural food in the garden through the year with seeds and berries and insects, it's good, especially in the cold weather, just to give them a little bit of an extra treat. So we always put the bird feeders out. We always put some seeds in one and we put peanuts in another so that they will come and feed on those. And it's amazing how quickly they'll eat them and they'll go down. And then the other thing that we make sure there's always a source of fresh water in the garden, not only for drinking, but they love to preen their feathers. Even in the coldest of weather, the sparrows and all the birds are preening their feathers. So clean water, food is essential, and they'll be happy and they will reward us next year by coming to clean out all the pests. So thank you for watching us this week on Pots and Trowels. Hope you've enjoyed it. And as always, please tell all your friends about it and share us on Facebook and on YouTube as well. And of course, we'll be back next week out in the garden doing more jobs. See you then. Thanks. Bye.